Coastal Carolina, as of late, has burst onto the national scene, been one of the staples in college football, especially among the Sun Belt Conference, and they are under new management for 2023. With Jamie Chadwell going off to Liberty, Tim Beck, a former offensive coordinator of Ohio State and NC State, has entered this program for what I believe to be his first head coaching experience, although I'm sure Chanticleer fans can fact check me in the comment section below. And this is the team that surprisingly returned their quarterback among a lot of great talent. So can Coastal Carolina reclaim a Sun Belt championship in 2023, or is this going to be a team that starts to fall off as they adjust to their new system under their new head coach? What's up, Tailgaters? My name is Tailgate Nate, and welcome to my channel. I'm previewing and predicting all 133 FBS level college football teams this summer. Guys, it means I'm doing your favorite teams. So hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so you know when your favorite team gets uploaded. But there are a lot more ways than that you can help me support my channel. Hey, you're doing one right now by watching the video. You guys might as well do more by liking, commenting, sharing, and anything else you guys are willing and able to do to help me support my channel. Whatever you're able to do, I greatly appreciate it. Coastal Carolina, the Chanticleers. Hey, I got the chance to visit Conway while I was on vacation this summer. Beautiful place, beautiful field. Got to go on the field. Very, very cool experience, and this is the team that I really like heading into 2023. Hey, how do we do things around here? Well, we're going to go through a roster overview and look at who the team lost, who's coming back, and who's coming in through the transfer portal and recruiting class, as well as taking a look at the 2023 Chanticleer football schedule, and we'll give it a game-by-game preview and prediction. So without further ado, let's talk about Coastal Carolina. If my slide would change, there it goes there in 2023. My third-ranked team out of the Sun Belt Conference. I usually don't talk about the rankings. They're up over there in that corner that way. Anyway, let's talk about the quarterback position. It is the most important position on the field. Your backup in Jarrett Guest does come back. 438 yards, 2 touchdowns, 4 interceptions last year. He will be the backup again this year because to a lot of people, somewhat unexpectedly, a player that was expected to transfer to a Power 5 program, Grayson McCall, returns to Conway for the Coastal Carolina Chanticleer offense. Exactly 2,700 yards last year, 24 touchdowns, and only 2 interceptions on almost 70% completion percentage. Yeah, he threw almost 300 passes last year. He's a really good quarterback. In my opinion, by far the best quarterback the Sun Belt Conference has to offer, and he is going to lead an offense that returns a ton of phenomenal talent, starting out with the running back room. Hey, pretty much everybody under the moon and sun comes back in this running back room. CJ Beasley was the leading rusher last year, 717 yards and 5 touchdowns last year. However, Reese White expected to overtake him. He was the second leading rusher last year at 544 yards, 5 touchdowns. Did have a slightly higher yards per carry average there as well. Braden Bennett will also be coming back to this team, as well as Max Balthaser. What I'm trying to say, very deep running back room for the Chanticleers this season, as well as it's going to be a pretty good wide receiver room as well. Your top 3 leading receivers come back after last year. Sam Pinckney, 996 yards, that close to 1,000-yard season, had 3 touchdowns as well. He's coming back. Jared Brown had 789 yards, led the team among players who had 20 or more catches and most yards per catch. Also led the team with 6 touchdowns. And Tyson Mobley had 490 yards and 5 touchdowns. Very good 1-2-3 at the wide receiver position. One of the best wide receiver rooms in the Sun Belt Conference is in Conway. Now, in the tight end room, this is where you start to suffer a couple losses on the offensive side, as Xavier Gravette, 190 yards and 2 touchdowns through the air, was that featured tight end last year. He is going to be gone, as well as Jacob Jenkins, but there are a lot of transfers coming into this program. Kane Baran is a former 4-star out of high school. He's transferring over from Notre Dame. And a former 3-star out of high school transfers over from North Carolina. It's Kendall Carr, as well as Matt Alamo transferring into this program as well. He's a former 3-star out of high school from Rutgers. So you get a lot of very talented P5 transfers coming in to the tight end room. And then when you take a look at the offensive line, yes, Antwin Loper and Willie Lapkin are going to be gone. Those are 2 very experienced offensive linemen that will be leaving. However, Will McDonald, Donnell Wilson, and Dylan Luther will return, as well as getting a transfer coming over in Evan Jumper. He is a former 2-star out of high school, but his rating isn't showing up. I believe a 3-star rated transfer, according to 24/7. He is out of an FCS level program in Furman. Should play some solid minutes for them. This is an offense that returns a whole lot. Getting Grayson McCall back is huge. You got a lot of talent surrounding him as well. Now, when you take a look at the defensive side, What are we talking about when we look at the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers? Well, let's take a look at their defense first, right? Or their defensive line first, I guess. I should say. When you take a look at the defensive line, boy, is there a big loss there in Josiah Stewart. He's transferring over to Michigan to help bolster up that defense. Shows you how good of a player he was. He was a top 10 tackler, 37 tackles, 3.5 sacks last season. World-class player that is leaving Conway. You're also losing Gerard Clark and Braylon Ryan are going to be leaving this defensive line as well. 3.5 sacks for Clark last year. As well, tied him with Josiah Stewart. You do return the likes of Kennedy Roberts, Allen Henry, and Jaquan Griffin, as well as getting some pretty solid transfers. And Carlos Hatcher is a transfer coming over from Tulane. They were G5's best last season, and then Clinton Anakwuru is going to be transferring into this program as well. Should give some solid minutes on that defensive line for this team. All right, when you go ahead and take a look at the linebacking room, you are going to lose Adrian Hope. Pretty substantial loss there. Led the team last year. 6.5 sacks. Again, tied with Josiah Stewart for those 37 tackles. Oh, you're also going to be losing another Josiah. It's Josiah Robinson that will be leaving this linebacker room as well. Josiah Robinson, only 11 tackles last year, was kind of a depth piece, so you do lose him. So who comes back out of this linebacking unit? Well, none other than your leading tackler by a mile last year, JT Killen at 95 tackles, 2.5 sacks, 3 pass defended. He's coming back. Shane Bruce was the top 3 tackler, 56 tackles. He's coming back. And Trey Pinckney will be returning to this team as well. Another top 10 tackler. Also was tied for the team lead last year with 2 other guys with 2 interceptions. When you take a look at the defensive back room, Lance Boykin is going to be gone. He also had 2 interceptions last year, led the way with 7 pass defended, and was a top 5 tackler. DeJordan Strong and Manny Starks are some other pieces that will leave this defensive back room. But you return pretty much everyone else. Charles Arnold, Jacob Prochet, Taven Jackson, Tobias Fletcher, Joshua Madison, among others, return to this defense for Coastal Carolina. This is going to be another very solid season for Coastal Carolina this year. Definitely a player for a Sun Belt championship. My apologies for the stutter. This is a very, very well-sound team. They do have a new head man, though. Water break? Make sure you stay hydrated. Their head coach is Tim Beck. Offensive coordinator is Travis Trickett. And your defensive coordinator is Craig Naviar. As we take a look at the Chanticleer football schedule for 2023. Any game in green is a game I see them winning easily. Any game in yellow is a game where, I should lead with any game at home is going to be underlined, and any game on the road will be in italics or the slanted text. I just went through green. That's an easy win. Yellow's a back and forth 50-50 style game, but the Chanticleers will be able to win, and red is a loss. So without further ado, go ahead and take a look at the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers schedule. You open up with a very difficult game on the road against UCLA. That's a game I do happen to think you are going to lose. UCLA is in that top threshold of the Pac-12 conference this season, and it could be a really good year for Chip Kelly and company. You're having to find a quarterback to replace Dorian Thompson-Robinson, but a lot of solid pieces return for that offense. Some good pieces defensively return for this team as well. And even though you are trying to replace DTR, you got 3 very, very solid options, including a highly touted freshman in Dante Moore to help lead that program. So I believe that will be a loss in the Rose Bowl for Coastal Carolina. But I do think they rattle off 2 wins. Jacksonville State, that's a new program to the FBS ranks. They've joined Conference USA this year. We'll be previewing them a little later this summer. And I think it's going to take time for them to adjust to the FBS level. Coastal Carolina, I think, will be able to win that game. And then they should be able to beat Duquesne there as well. Duquesne, not a great football team from the FCS ranks, so Coastal Carolina should be able to win that one there. And now you jump in the conference play here in week 4. You got a weekday game against the Georgia State Panthers, but you get it at home. It's a game I think Coastal Carolina is going to be able to win. Now, Georgia State will keep games close this year, and I think they're going to win their fair share of games this year as well, but that's a team having to replace a lot of talent from last season. However, I do like a lot of the talent they have there now. However, I do not believe they're up to standard of the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers. Georgia State will lose that game. Then you got Georgia Southern up here in week 5, and this is the game I could really see delving either way. I think Georgia Southern has got a very good passing attack. I do believe Davis Brin is in there at the quarterback position now, and I think he's going to absolutely have this passing attack that was pretty solid last year with Kyle Van Treese absolutely explode this season. It's a defense that could see improvement this year as well, and Georgia Southern, going to be a very solid team in the Sun Belt Conference, could be a little bit of a spoiler in the Fun Belt this year as well, but Georgia Southern, I just don't know if they have the defensive intensity to be able to slow down this Coastal Carolina offense. So I think the Chanticleers on offense alone are going to be able to win that game. Defense will step up, make some plays there as well. Then you get your bye week. You come out of the bye week, play a Tuesday game against the Appalachian State Mountaineers. I think you're going to win one of those two games. Excuse me, I should say you're going to lose one of those two games on the road. Obviously, that means you win the other one. I had you beating Georgia Southern, so I do think you're going to end up dropping this game to the Appalachian State Mountaineers. That's a team that does have to replace quite a bit of talent on it, offensively and defensively as well. But if we know App State, this is going to be a solid, very competitive team in the Sun Belt Conference. Even with all you have to replace, you still return some solid pieces offensively and defensively, and I think there's going to be a little too much for Coastal Carolina. Again, that's one of the tougher places to play amongst teams in the Sun Belt Conference. So I think you pick up your second loss of the year on the road against App State. Some crazy things can happen when Appalachian State is at home. But then you do get to go on the road, play a little bit of an easier opponent here when you play Arkansas State. The Red Wolves are not going to be up to standard of the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers. I see them being able to win that game right there, with Coastal Carolina. And I also have you beating Marshall as well. Marshall does have to replace some pretty solid pieces on the offense, and they do lose some pretty solid contributors on defense, but that defense still, I think, should be really good this year. It's going to be able to push Coastal Carolina around a little bit. I know they are losing quite a bit of names, but with what they have returning, there's some very, very talented pieces still on that defense. Henry Columby is gone. You're going to have to find a new guy to come in and play quarterback, at least to start at quarterback for Marshall. But I still think that's going to be a pretty solid team in the Sun Belt Conference this year. However, I think Coastal Carolina's offense will be a little too explosive, will be a little bit too much, and they will be able to beat the Marshall Thundering Herd. And then on the road against Old Dominion, I have you winning as well. Old Dominion is a team that may be a little bit of a surprise team to some coming into 2023. They definitely are capable. They do have some good talent, but they are losing a lot of great talent through the transfer portal as well, most notably in the wide receiver room. Ali Jennings, I believe, is that marquee name that is leaving. I believe he's gone over to Virginia Tech. So Old Dominion, a team that I could really see being pretty competitive in the Sun Belt this year, but all in all, don't know it leads to many wins. Old Dominion drops that game to Coastal Carolina, which means Coastal Carolina continues on with this win streak, and I think it continues one game farther with the Texas State Bobcats there as well. Again, much like Arkansas State, not a team that'll be up to standard, not a team I think will be much of any good in the Sun Belt Conference. So that is a win there for Coastal Carolina. Then you got two really tricky games to finish off the schedule. And again, much like that two-game split with Georgia Southern and App State, I see you winning and losing one of these games apiece. It just so happens that I have you losing to Army. I think Army is going to be a pretty solid team this year. That's a team that could see a revolutionizing of their offense. They did bring in an offensive coordinator, I believe, from the Division II ranks of Nebraska Kearney. And when you go ahead and take a look at that Army defense, we know they play hard. Yes, they lost a lot of key guys, but I think they're going to be able to slow down this Coastal Carolina offense. And I think Army will be able to grind out a win there in that game, which means I think Coastal Carolina, the season finale in Conway, I think will be able to beat James Madison. They absolutely surprised as an FBS team last season, their first season as an FBS program. They absolutely surprised. I think they can surprise even more this year. They're going to be really, really good. I just think Coastal Carolina offensively, again, going to be a little too much for that James Madison defense, albeit that's a defense that does return a lot of talent. So I got Coastal Carolina sitting at a 9-3, 7-1. I don't think this team quite has the star power that it has had over the past couple of seasons when, of course, Jamie Chadwell was that head coach. But this is still a very good Coastal Carolina team. Grayson McCall being that quarterback, he'll lead that offense to a monumental season, and this is the Coastal Carolina team I easily could see playing for a Sun Belt championship again in 2023. So that's my thoughts on the Chanticleers. Let me know yours in the comment section below, and as always, remember to play hard, tailgate harder. See you guys in the next video.